Welcome everyone to episode 85 of Raw Sport. We're back with another big show with the man himself, Mr. Rick Glazer. Rick, what's happening, my man?
Not much. Just another exciting Monday night with 30 quick minutes with you and fast paced and fire away.
Absolutely. Quick, straight to the point, mate. Is boxing dying in the USA?
Not really dying. It's just becoming more global worldwide, and it's drawing such huge crowds in the UK, and with the added revenues coming from the country of Saudi Arabia now, and with Japan being a boxing hotbed, the big fights are being more spread out around the world than they are just the biggest fights happening in the United States like it used to be. Because they're drawing 90,000 people, 35,000 people in England. Nui draws 35 to 55,000 people over there, and the rest of the guys draw 18,000 people. They put three small world title fights on. They draw 18,000 people. In Japan, it's hot. Boxing's hot there. It's hot in the UK, and of course, it's still good in the United States. It's just not it's just more global now than it ever has been.
So the argument to that is, over the last 18 months, where the boxing has shifted, the big fights have shifted to Saudi Arabia. You have boxing airing on Saturday afternoon in the US, which is in competition with college football. College football has a very strong grassroots movement, huge buzz around that. And, that takes away from boxing. How do you counter that, basically?
It's tough to counter, but people will watch football and then they'll take the boxing or they'll just what do you call it? Watch it because like the zone keeps it up there and they just watch it later that night.
Is the zone a barrier into the US market or for the US market to engage with boxing outside the US? Because one of the biggest issues is the US market hasn't grasped the thought process of adopting the zone as a platform for boxing. Why?
They haven't advertised well in the United States at all. People don't even know it exists. A matter of fact, on our credit card bill, when the yearly bill comes to pay the zone subscription, my wife says, "What?" My wife watches boxing too. She says, "Rick, what's DAZAN?" I said, "That's the one. That's the app we watch the boxing on Saturday." Oh, yeah. Golden Boy shows. Oh, yeah. Okay. She didn't even know what it was, and she
But
watches it.
we've had some
It's
big fight.
it's very poorly marketed. It doesn't have a meaning. The name doesn't have a meaning. It doesn't stick with people. If you called it the boxing channel, the boxing network, the boxing platform, or platform boxing, or some kind of thing we had word boxing in it would be much better off. But because the zone has other sports, they don't use the word boxing. What they should really do is they should break it down in tiers and have have a boxing app within the app and call it the zone boxing or something. Just use the word boxing. That's all they got to do.
What about a path into a mainstream provider, cable provider, like other platforms do?
Well, they're trying to get it. They're trying to get people to come to streaming, and streaming is the way to go going forward. So that's a very short-term gain with a long-term deficit. So that's not the way to go.
It could be a marketing move that opens up
It,
another world.
it definitely could be, but those kind of things don't turn out that way. They say, "Oh, they're watching it for free. Oh, I can't watch it for free anymore. I'm not going to buy it." It doesn't work like that. You have to go after people that are boxing fans. It's a diehard thing. It's the general sporting fan is not into it. That's all there is to it. It's very simple. We need to get people that are become diehard boxing fans, and the way to do that is take those to zone fights and put them on a free cable network a week later, not when they're live.
So let
Take
me
it
ask
away.
you this: why do other sports succeed in having casual fans and boxing doesn't?
Because boxing is not readily available at people's fingertips like other sports are. They got a million people covering NFL football, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, NASCAR. They got a lot of. We don't have that, and we have guys that do it part-time because it's more of a niche sport over here. And it's been a niche sport for 20 years over here. It didn't just happen.
What do you say to the people that say to you, Canelo Alvarez used to fight solely in the States, specifically in Las Vegas. He used to bring millions of dollars to the local Las Vegas market. He used to bring the attention of the
my answer to that is market conditions have changed, and now he's going to Saudi Arabia. There's more money over there for Canelo.
So boxing is truly becoming an international sport. How does America?
No, it's always been international, but it's becoming more globalized.
More globalized, absolutely. So how does the American market or the American boxing ecosystem hold on to its aura, its reputation, its brand?
Put on better fights than we've been putting on and give the people what they want to see, not what you want to put on as a promoter.
Valid point. Speaking of Japan, it was reported recently that the last Inoue fight generated $72 million in revenue in Japan. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, that's what the number was. I got it. 3 people told me that.
Okay. For the regular boxing fan who doesn't understand the business side, how is that broken down in terms of business?
Well, there's different revenue streams. You had ESPN, you had the whatever they showed on over there in Japan. I'm not sure what the network they showed on Japan, but that revenue, the gate revenue, sponsorships, international TV or streaming like ESPN Plus, pay to have it on. In the UK, it was on, I believe, Sky TV. I believe.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I believe it was on Sky.
Yeah.
What was it on in Australia?
I believe it was on Fox Sports.
Fox. Yeah, Fox. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Fox.
It's his fights are all over the world. It's all total revenue from all over the world because he's so popular, because he makes great fights and they put him in with top fighters.
So that notion of the sport now becoming global is truly showing now in the numbers in external countries as well. So it's not
absolutely
just, okay.
Absolutely. There's not even we in the United States are drastically behind the times. Every other country that shows boxing, whether it's the UK, whether it's Australia, whether it's Japan, Saudi Arabia, they're giving people fights that they want to see and pay for. We are not doing that in America. We are putting on fights that we want to put on. And that's killing the fucking sport in America.
Okay.
And that's why the other countries are able to do the things they're doing. They're giving the people what they want to see.
Absolutely. There you go. There's been some talks, again, on the internet, boxing ecosystem, UFC ecosystem. Dana White and Ari Emanuel are looking, or it's been reported that there's been conversations of them repealing the ALI Act on the basis of Dana White having a very strong relationship with the current president, Mr. Trump, and on the basis of him coming into the sport and changing things up in America and giving the American boxing world the spark it needs. Have you heard anything?
Well, first of all, they shouldn't have had the Ali Act to start with. It's called free enterprise, and the Ali Act was wrong to start with.
So just before we do that, do you want to explain to fans, to regular fans, what the Ali Act is?
The Ali Act is that you have to tell the fighter that's in the main event what the revenues are. Okay? And why would they be entitled to know what the revenues are? It's actually, it should be against the Ali Act. To me, is broken laws. I mean, what happened to free trade? And I mean, it's ridiculous. The Ali Act is a ridiculous thing. It was wrong to start with.
It's also got its positives because you can't be a manager and a promoter and a promoter and a
manager. That doesn't matter because that's in state laws anyways.
Okay. Valid
That's in
point.
state laws, and there's no good state in the country that allows a promoter or a manager to be the same entity. Okay, nobody. Okay,
Okay.
so that they didn't even have to go there. That was bullshit. They're showing the revenues. They want you to disclose the revenues to the fighter in the main event. It's not right, and here's why it's not right. Okay, there are these promotional agencies, companies have between 10 and 40 employees. I'm talking about Golden Boy, Eddie Hearn, Top Rank, these kind of companies. That the Ali Act doesn't count your overhead. So when a fighter hears, "What do you mean you made $3 million on this fight?" Well, yeah, it costs us $2 million a month to run our business. Do you mind if we make a profit? Okay, so that's what the problem is there, and they're not accounting for that. It's as far as the Ali Act, and the fighters aren't understanding that.
Let me be devil's advocate. The other side of that argument is the fighters are being cut short, right?
That's why you have people. That's why you have lawyers and managers, advisors and agents to get your best deal.
But if
Why should a promoter have to show his revenues? It's wrong.
okay, but if I'm a fighter,
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
tell me.
Besides a union job where they're desperate and the union's clawing at the company, who shows the revenues? Nobody.
Public companies do.
Because they're publicly traded by stock, not because they have to show it to the employees. It's apples and oranges.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I'm a free enterprise guy. I'm just giving the other side of the argument here. Look,
Well, the other side of the argument is when you have managers, lawyers, advisors, and all that kind of, and agents and all that stuff, they should be able to make the best deal for you.
valid point. Okay, we'll keep going. So that's your opinion on the act itself. Talk to me about Dana White getting involved, pushing the act aside, so on and so on. These are the rumors that they're being talked about now on a daily occurrence.
I think Donald Trump is bigger fish to fry than the Ali Act. And maybe the Ali Act does get set back in 2-3 years. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think the Ali Act is wrong, like I said, and I hope it gets thrown out. And I'm not even a promoter, I'm saying it.
From a boxing perspective, giving that much power to one promoter, like we see in the UFC, there's constantly the argument about fighter pay, so on and so on. Okay? And the actual percentage of revenue that fighters get of the revenue that is generated by the UFC, constantly debated, argued about, people going to.
Well, UFC's got 200 employees. They're not taking, these fighters are not taking into consideration what's the cost to run that big campus that they have in, I think it's Henderson, outside of Vegas. And I mean, there's 200 employees. There's a gym there. There's what do they call that?
PIs all over the world.
Studio. There's corporate offices. There's a studio, and they're not considering what it costs to run this. This isn't a joke.
So let's say we come across now. He comes in. He pushes the Ali Act aside. How does it change the sport of boxing?
It's the fighters will have to get better agents, better advisors, and better attorneys, and they'll have to up the ante for the fighters. That's all there is to it. The fighters will have to pay those people.
Very direct.
They don't want to pay. They don't want to pay people. That's part of the problem there.
Okay, very direct question. Will it positively impact the sport of boxing?
What will? The Ali Act not being around?
Yeah.
No, it won't positively. It'll make more promoters maybe come in the game, or it will make more promoters to hire more people or something. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe more lawyers. I don't know.
Is Dana White and Ari Emanuel working with TKO and Alalshikh the answer to boxing in America?
No.
Why?
They have no experience because they have no experience in boxing. It's a unique animal compared to. You remember those UFC fighters? Very few have managers. They don't have lawyers. They can just run roughshod over them. They can't do that in boxing.
There you go. You heard it here first. All right, we'll keep going. Top Rank. There's lots of talks around Top Rank's deal being finished with ESPN. It got announced earlier in the week that, last week it got announced that it was over. Then later in the week, we're hearing talks around a renegotiation.
There's no renegotiation. There's no renegotiation. It's all bullshit planted in the internet so they can get a better deal with whoever they're going to try to go with.
So there's no renegotiation.
There's nothing. There's zero. Big zero.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Top Rank's early days, we've seen really good numbers. 800, 900, a million, 1.1, 1.2. Consistent numbers around the 600,000-700,000 viewers per show, right? They're very solid numbers. Why would ESPN drop such a product?
It's costing too much money. The budget that they gave them originally back what 8 years ago. Then they renegotiated a year later and gave them more dates and everything. When they saw the numbers, they feel it's too high. The product got stagnant. It got it got watered down. The Top Rank product, and it got stagnated.
Okay, and how does Top Rank have the biggest streaming service distributing its product for multiple years on end and not build up a pay-per-view star?
Well, I asked that. I said that today on Twitter. That was a question. There's a saying, 8 years and they never built up a pay-per-view star. Well, that's still with them, I should say. Everybody leaves them. Wow. In the last 8-year period, Pacquiao left, Crawford left, Shakur left. They don't want to pay, and then they don't want to pay the opponents to build the fighters up. They just don't want to pay.
So if they know it's going to reach a level where the fighter's going to leave them, they're not willing to step up. How is that model working? It's
not. It's not. That's why they're at a crossroads right now. They got no TV network that's latched onto them.
Jeez. So Bob Adams pretty much.
You can't. Here's the bottom line. You can't give Top Rank an exclusive. They use it to their advantage in the sense that they stifle the marketplace by putting on fights that people don't want to see, as a general rule, unless they're cheap.
Jeez. And they're meant to be one of the biggest organizations in the sport, if not the biggest.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they're not working on a tight budget. That they give X amount of dollars for a show. They want to make this. They put X amount of dollars in, and this is what they're getting. That's why you don't get the big fights with ESPN, the biggest fights. You never seen them try to sign Canelo, did you?
No. When it comes to pay-per-view, they're non-existent.
Well, they never try to sign because the guarantee is so big. They don't want to take the chance. They don't want to take the chance with anything. That's why they are what they are.
So
there was never a rumor in the last 8 years since they had ESPN. There was never even a rumor that Canelo was talking to Top Rank or Top Rank was talking to Canelo.
I mean, even their best fighter, Terence Crawford, went through a whole legal saga with him just to get out of his contract. I mean.
No. His contract expired. No. There was no correlation between the two of them. Terence Crawford's contract was up when that fight was over with Porter that night.
Awesome.
When he walked out of that ring, that contract was over. That was the last fight.
Okay. There you go. But yeah, I mean, Terence now is fighting. Is on the world stage. He's a boxing star. I wouldn't say he's a superstar. He's a star. Canelo Alvarez is a superstar. But he's scheduled to fight Alvarez later this year on the biggest stage, and he was once their fighter. Again, they missed the boat there. I mean, Shakur Stevenson is not a big draw, but Matchroom's willing to pay him a lot of money. I mean, you've had this conversation off air.
And Matchroom paid him more money than they were willing to pay him. And that's what I'm saying. Once your contract's free at the Top Rank, you might as well just move on because somebody's going to pay you more as a general rule.
Wow. What's next for Top Rank?
Don't know. Probably end up with a lot smaller DAZN deal than they had at ESPN, I would imagine. I could see that happening. A smaller deal, like a small deal, maybe a show a month, something like that.
Wow.
Not enough to have all those employees and all those fighters. Let's put it that way to you.
Would you say they're ready for an acquisition? Would you
What's
say
that?
they're primed for an acquisition?
Um, without a lot of value, yes,
Just based on their
yes,
following, their brand, so on and so on.
yeah. I think they are, but who knows what they're going to do? They got big egos over there, and bad imagination. So we'll see.
Wow, there you go. Disappointing to say the least. Okay, we have a huge card coming up this weekend in Saudi Arabia, the new land of boxing. This card has been pegged as one of the greatest cards in modern day history. Turkey Al-Sheikh has produced the goods once again. We have a dynamite fight card. Which fight are you looking out for most?
Well, anybody that's real would be. I would Virgil Ortiz and Israel Madrimov, and of course Peterbiev and Bivol. But I think Madrimov and Ortiz is going to be a sensational fight.
Is this the making of Virgil Ortiz if he wins this fight?
Yeah, or it'll be the undressing of one of the two. That's for sure.
I mean, I can't see him going down in an easy fight against Madrimov. I think he's going to take it to him. I think his stocks will go up either way. But is this the making of Virgil Ortiz officially as a star in the sport?
If he wins, it is. Yeah, if he wins, he is. He's a star. If he wins, because he can't be in a bad fight. He's just one of those kind of guys. He's a rugged guy. He brings the heat, can punch. He's a good fighter.
How
Very
many
good fighter.
promoters,
We'll see if he's great
how many
Saturday.
promoters are involved in this fight card?
Oh my God, no telling.
5, 6.
I'd have to Eddie Hearn, Top Rank, Golden Boy, K, whatever they call that, K2. Um, let's see. Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn.
There's about five.
Like I said, Golden Boy, Spencer Brown.
There's about 5, 6 of them involved at least.
Yeah, yeah. Then that's what Turkey Al-Sheikh's doing. He's bringing all the people together, and that's why he's making the fights, because he's put his foot down. He's putting up the money. The best are fighting the best.
It's not so hard after all, Rick?
Well, he's got the money. Let's face it. When you got the money, everybody will fall in line.
Good point. Okay. Big card. Now, the biggest question has been in Saudi Arabia is the crowd attendance. It's been a little underwhelming, to say the least.
Well, it's the culture. It's like in Japan, the crowds are underwhelming. They're huge crowds, and you don't hear nothing. You hear like a buzz. Okay, same thing in Japan. They had 55,000 people there. You wouldn't. It sounded like there was 10 people in the joint. That's the cultures of different countries.
But are they selling out stadiums? Because that's been the conversation.
Well, I don't know about selling out over in Saudi Arabia, but the crowd that there has been quiet, and like the crowds in Japan are quiet. The crowds in the UK, the crowds in like Montreal for the fights up there, the fights in the United States, the crowds are rambunctious. They're loud. Certain countries are loud, and certain countries are very quiet.
So
Mexico, they're loud.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pay-per-view price coming down to $24.99, I believe, in the States.
Yeah, $25.99 on this card Saturday.
$25.99. Yep. Now, such a big card, low pay-per-view pricing, low crowd attendance. Are we being primed for a model around pay-per-view and TV? Not so much in-house attendance in Saudi Arabia.
I think the Saudi Arabia cards are going to be, except Oscar's card was not on pay-per-view because he didn't want it. He asked Turkey not to put it on pay-per-view, and it wasn't. It was a straight up the zone show on subscription streaming. I think that's heading that way, but we're still going to have a lot of free cards. Okay, those cards in Saudi Arabia you should be paying
Okay,
for.
but more about these shows in Saudi are being primed as TV shows, not so much in-house attendance.
Oh, I see. Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Because then you have a global audience looking in, and that's when the
100%.
marketing for the tourism and all that happens in between bouts and so on and so on. Right? That's what I can see personally.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. All right. From my perspective, that's all this week. I know you've always got a little piece of news that you can share with us. You got anything that we haven't heard about or don't know about, or you'd like to share exclusively with us on Raw Sport?
Next week.
Wow. Next show or next week? Because we're going again very soon with a boxing legend.
No. Next Monday night.
Okay. So those of you who have tuned in, that always tune in, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, we are going live again, second show this week, with one of boxing's modern day legends, and arguably don't know why he's not in the Boxing Hall of Fame. That's your fault, Rick, because you're one of the guys that votes on him. He's not on a ballot. You need to push. So tune in. It's going to be a massive show. Send your questions through the chats. We'll be live. We'll be taking questions. And before we end up, we have a message from Fernando Tapia. He says, "Hey, Rick." So say hi to Fernando for us, Rick. And then we'll wrap things up. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. Thank you, Rick. Take care, everyone. We'll catch you all on the next episode of Raw Sport, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Take care.